Hey, Billy Blue. Appreciate your support on Patreon. Thanks for being willing to do a critique. Assembled just two things from your site here, and you're looking to get hired, right? So let's get you hired. Not necessarily immediately, but here's just a couple of things that I came across. A couple of things that are like obviously strictly art related, right? Improvement wise, and then a couple things that are very superficial, and I would put more on the side of like branding or marketing, right? All right. So for one, the way that when you first go to your site, here's like the least to do with your actual artwork, right? Is that the file sizes are huge, and just if I'm a recruiter or someone who's coming, an interested client, right, not being able to load the images easily is going to turn me away, right? Like I went to your site needing to see your work, but think along this from the standpoint of someone who doesn't necessarily need to see your work and is very fickle and is willing to stop waiting for your page to load and find someone whose is, right? That's super harsh. It's more harsh than I usually am, right? But going along with that too is presentation wise and framework. Did I say presentation? Like I'm definitely not British. Um, so to split a couple of the things that you have up, obviously these are kind of the two. Maybe the third thing would be kind of the props, right? But you've got kind of your. This is more so along the Riot Blizzard semi-realism based concept art side of things, and this is definitely squarely on like the mobile game side, right? And so maybe splitting those up is a good idea. But as far as how you present your work, right, the way that it looks right now is very very basic, and maybe that's kind of maybe it's in a transitional period or you're not completely finished. But just looking at your site, it's kind of along the lines of like here's all of it, right? And actually kind of creating a frame around or a context, maybe writing a little bit like of an explanation, even if it's super obvious stuff that you and I are just like, well, duh. It's helpful on the hiring side of things to get some of that context, right? So split it up into concept art, uh, mobile game graphics, or like calling these guys character design, even though this is also character design. Just those are some suggestions, but splitting up. Here's also from the presentation side of things. If you took this, let's do this. I don't know how to, but a lot of the assets that you have are just there's the assets and they're on like kind of a white background, right? Let's see. Maybe if I trying to do this lossless, I might just have to go in and draw over top of your work, basically. So if you're, let's see, let's do this, and it's going to be sloppy because I don't have access to your layered work, obviously, but you can do this, right? Where you just take what you have and give it just a little bit of a gradient background. You'll see people doing stuff like this, and ignoring all the white fuzz. Like that's just a good way to isolate all of the work, right? And a nice just kind of way to frame it. Or do different colors, a little bit of like a blurry vignette background kind of thing. Those kind of go a long way. This guy here, this little creature, the artistic quality of him is not up to par for the rest of the piece, which is very nice. So that's distracting, right? And so that's going to detract a little bit for you. So just a suggestion there. Here's another thing. So now we're working our way, right? Presentation. Now let's get to the actual art things. And I'm gonna pick on value. When you're working with something like this stuff, which is it's line work, right? And even though you can color the lines, you still have a clear delineation between shapes and everything. And the hierarchy of information as it's being conveyed is like, here's a head, here's a body, here's the tail. All of that comes across, right? But as soon as you go lineless with something like this, you start getting a bigger need for that value information. And so if I was to come in, let's, excuse me, very rudimentary, right? This is not like a final thing, but I just made like a multiply layer, right? So when I draw, it's going to make just kind of darker lines in red. Maybe if I go a little bit more purplish with it. Now I can just go in and extra highlight some areas, especially when you've got like areas between, like where you've got ambient occlusion, right? Same here. And you probably, because you have like your stuff already, just make the darker stuff darker, make the lighter stuff a little bit lighter, a little bit more contrast, right? Because it's very easy to get washed out as soon as you're lineless, right? And so this is just, take this as kind of representational stuff. I'm not actually improving the work right now. But like, yeah, as soon as you get to this arm, which is behind, there should be kind of a lot of shadow being cast on it there. But it's instead, this shade here is flatter than this shade here that I just got rid of your initial work underneath. So paying some attention to stuff like that. And obviously you're going to want the right color, right? I'm just using this kind of washed purple. This area here is going to be lighter, right? So if you went in and, let's see, something like this, a little bit more, something that helps with this too is rim lighting. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. So if you go in with maybe like this blue, for example, and go around the edge. Right now it's tough with the white. So actually, let's get rid of the white thing. There we go. If you go in and add just a little bit of this light that's peeking around the edge of your character, it's a good way to convey some of that extra depth, right? And it's a good way to get some contrast in. Okay, that's a suggestion. So yeah, the multiply. See, and especially now as you get lower down. Let's see, where was I? About there in color. Especially as you get lower and there's more of this, more opportunities for shadow. Maybe this, as you get kind of closer to the ground, there's less light. So now you're, if I kind of wash over everything now very quickly. Am I on the right layer? Yeah. You start to see how there's kind of a gradient flow of like light up here to dark down here. So that's just a suggestion. Yeah, I would say this guy, at least either improve that version of him or cut him completely, because he's got the same value issues, right? He's too flat. If you come in and crank your saturation all the way down, you get to see your values. And so like with your guy here, he looks good, but there's just a little bit of like, bringing up the lights and bringing down the darks is gonna be helpful. He's kind of almost all one shade except for the the places where he's got the dark hair, right? When in reality, what he kind of needs is dark and light value based on lighting information as well, right? Okay, and then I also would say just kind of, this is such a tough tightrope to walk, and it's also, you'll have to forgive me only from the standpoint of it's kind of a thing of taste as far as I'm concerned. I know that this work of yours would fit in with a lot of the mobile games that are out there, right? And I'm not going to tell you wouldn't succeed making them like this. But I do find a lot of the mobile, and like this isn't faulting you because you're just kind of emulating what's already out there, and you did a good job of that. But I feel like a lot of the mobile stuff that's out there, especially like the ones that are kind of doing this Pokemon style of like added complication over top, like as you level up, you start with this guy and then he gets, level 10, he gets this armor kind of thing. I find a lot of the shapes really cluttered. There's like too much information going on, with something like this. So I would aim to make something that, as soon as you get to here, you still have a good idea of the main big shapes on this guy, right? Like from here, I can tell what's going on the left, not so much on the right. And again, it's a really tough line to walk because you want to be able to add all of that extra armor and like you want to be able to showcase the fact that your character's leveled up, but you start to almost lose stuff, especially like here and I would say about there too. So hopefully that stuff is helpful for you. I think you're right on that cusp of being able to get that work that you're looking for. Again, I would work on values. I would also make more work along these lines of your wizard guy here, just to show that it's not just a one-off, right? Especially if they want to hire you to be on staff or internship, they want to be able to see that this isn't just a one-time, event, right? That it's something you can produce consistently. So that's my advice for you. Work on the site side of things, presentation wise, and throw up a little bit of a bio. Who is Billy, right? Like all that stuff is going to be helpful on the client side of things, and if publishing stuff on social media isn't something you're already doing, that's another good way to get people to hear, right? I'm not familiar with your social stuff if you do have that stuff. All right, so hopefully that stuff is helpful for you. Appreciate it again. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'm looking forward to seeing where you go, and I'm looking forward to seeing you get hired for some stuff. I think you're almost there.